My family used to go to the laundromat when I was 5. I'd sit and watch cartoons and eat snacks while they did laundry. And one time, I went to the bathroom. I tried opening the door to leave, but someone was pushing it shut from the other side. I started crying and pushing harder, thinking I was going to die in there. And that my family wouldn't know where I was. Finally, the person on the other side quit and on the other end quit pushing, and she walked in the bathroom and backed me up against the wall. She looked at me in the eyes and said, "It's a scary world, isn't it?" I took off out of there. Never saw that lady again, but man, she scared me. LOL. I still have a fear of getting locked in bathrooms now. I grew up as an only child in a small house in the Hollywood Hills. Before housing prices in the neighborhood skyrocketed, my parents were not the helicoptering type. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Perhaps because they themselves grew up in a small town. Safe town in the Midwest in the 1950s/60s. I spent my childhood roaming the neighborhood and the hills, playing imaginary with little stories through my head. I had a couple of local friends over the years, but generally there were no kids in our neighborhood. It wasn't the place to raise children. It wasn't a great part of Hollywood at the time, and the 101 freeway The 101 freeway was quite literally in our backyard. Most of the streets were unpaved, and there were no sidewalks. Mostly it was polluted with aging hippie types and struggling actors. So 90% of the time I played and wandered alone. One day my mother picked me up from school and we were headed home. Once through the door we did the usual kicked our shoes off, ushered off school and work bags, greeted the cats, and attended to the blinking red light on the answering machine. I think I was I can't pronounce that word right there. Remember our usual little routine that day because I vividly remember our usual little routine that day because what cut through it next was so unusually and unsettling and rang in such sharp contrast to the comfortable little word I'd always felt so safe within. I was maybe 8 or 9 at the time, and this was definitely a moment of incidents lost. There was only one message, a man's voice groaning. Invalid, a little house. I would love so much to scare your daughter. Then he laughed, manically sounding and angrily. I can't pronounce these words, guys. I suck at this. it would have sounded like a GIF or a villain in some movie, but it didn't, despite the obvious tragics. It didn't sound that way because it was real. It was far scarier than any fiction. The laughter was loud, long, and drawn out. I didn't even hear the end of it. My mom hit stop on the player, cutting him off abruptly, but his constant, still, long breathing in the air. My little world was never in vocabulary disturbed. I remember my mother playing it very casually and telling me that it was nothing and that I shouldn't be afraid. And I recall how shocking her complaint was and how it was nothing. Shouldn't I be afraid? Why wasn't she afraid? Looking back now, I realize she was putting up a front for my benefit. Sorry. Whenever I've brought this up to her now as an adult, she seems to sort of vaguely remember how it and goes, "Oh yeah, I don't know what that was. Just someone playing a prank." I'm shocked, honestly, that my parents didn't go to the police with it. That's not what I would consider a prank. To this day, I think my mom is still trying to downplay it. She grows uncomfortably when I bring it up. Anyway, after the incident, I could never really fully enjoy myself. When I was out in the neighborhood by myself, I always wondered if that man was somewhere in the hills watching.